Welcome to the Common Man Football Show. My name is James Cobern, and today's episode is the Buffalo Bills draft class. Starting with the first pick of the draft, Tre White, cornerback from LSU. When it comes to his production, he scored 86.81 when it comes to solo tackle market share production, and 89.86 when it comes to pass deflection market share production. Both those marks in terms of solo tackle and pass deflection market share are decent. But his only issues really show up when it comes to athleticism. Only scored 27.73 in terms of explosiveness for his size, 67.79 when it comes to speed for his size, 60.62 when it comes to flexibility for his size. He has a decent overall starter profile as a cornerback, but he does not hit the marks that he needs to hit in terms of All-Pro/Pro Bowl explosiveness, nor does he hit the marks that he needs to hit in terms of Pro Bowl/All-Pro flexibility, and he, in many ways, is just very similar to DJ Hayden. DJ Hayden compared to Tre White as an athlete. There's lots of similarities between the two of them when it comes to just physical characteristics and overall athleticism. So Tre White is a cornerback that I think you should expect to become a long-term starter. Again, something that 90% of most players drafted don't reach. I mean, most players don't end up being long-term starters, so the fact that he has that likelihood of becoming a starter should be a compliment. But it's just when it comes to Pro Bowl/All-Pro sort of thresholds, I would not expect that based on his athleticism profile. There's always a potential that it could happen because he does have very good production and he did produce against SEC competition, but I just would not expect him. He just doesn't have the physical characteristics necessary to be a consistently elite cornerback, whether that's a Pro Bowl cornerback like a Richard Sherman or a All-Pro cornerback like any number of guys like Richard Sherman or Darrelle Revis or any of those types of cornerbacks. And then we come to the next pick of the draft in terms of Zay Jones, wide receiver out of East Carolina. When it comes to his production, he scored 93.29 when it comes to passing yardage market share production. And when it comes to athleticism, very good when it comes to athleticism. Scored 78.28 in terms of explosives for his size, 71.63 when it comes to speed for his size, and 90.61 when it comes to flexibility for his size. I think the main thing with Zay Jones that people may knock him on is that he isn't like the ideal looking wide receiver. I mean, he's not exactly 210 pounds or 220 pounds. Being a 6'2 corner, he's kind of light when it comes to that. That's why some people have compared him to Nate Burleson, for example. But you just have to look at his overall profile. He put up elite production. He has an elite physical trait in terms of flexibility for his size. He's going to be a good player. It's just a matter of how good he's going to be based on some of the things that he lacks in terms of just not being a dominant sort of physical mismatch. Like, he is a physical mismatch in the sense that he is, relatively tall, but he doesn't have like the Vincent Jackson or Julio Jones or any number of those types of guys type of mismatch guy. He has to be a mismatch based on his athleticism, and he could potentially be that type of guy. But it's just there isn't a ton of guys to point to for Zay Jones to say, oh, he's going to be a Pro Bowler, is all I'm trying to say when it comes to his profile. But it is a potential. I mean, there is lots of potential that he could become a Pro Bowler or even an All-Pro wide receiver based on his production, based on his athleticism. It's just that based on his weight and his height, it's just something that doesn't happen as often based on that sort of stuff. So I would expect good things, very good things, but his overall upside is a bit cloudy because of his overall weight and certain factors kind of like that. Then we come to the next pick of the draft in terms of Deon Dawkins, offensive tackle/offensive guard from Temple. When it comes to his athleticism, he scored 56.02 when it comes to explosives for his size, 87.62 when it comes to speed for his size, and 94.93 when it comes to flexibility for his size. All those marks are fairly decent at the offensive tackle position. His only real issue is height. He's only 6'5", and the majority of high-quality offensive tackles are 6'6" or higher. But this is Deon Dawkins compared to all of the special offensive tackles that were 6'5" or less. And he doesn't really hit any of those areas. He doesn't have great all around. Like, his explosiveness doesn't really hit the area that it needs to hit for truly elite explosion athletes when it comes to the offensive tackle position. nor does he have the speed of, say, Walter Jones, for example. So tackle may not be the best place to put him, but if he was at guard, he shows marketable improvement. I mean, at guard, it doesn't really matter. Like, he's basically all-pro level when it comes to height at the guard position, and he has all-pro level athleticism overall when it comes to the guard position as well. But it's just a matter of what you want to do. He can play offensive tackle. It's just a position that there hasn't been consistent high-quality outcomes for players that don't have top 10 percentile overall athleticism overall, which is something that Deon Dawkins doesn't have. But if you put him inside at guard, you have all-pro outcomes. So it's really just a matter of what he ends up doing on the Buffalo Bills. I think his projection will depend enormously on that if he gets put inside or outside. But either way, I still think that you get a very good player, a guy who can play inside or out. It's just that if he plays inside, he has much higher potential to be an extremely high-quality player if you put him inside versus outside. Then we come to the next pick of the draft in terms of Matt Milano, linebacker from Boston College. When it comes to his production, he scored 33.79 in terms of solo tackle market share production, which is not very good. He doesn't hit the solo tackle market share production of 77 or higher when it comes to multiple Pro Bowl linebackers since the 1996 NFL draft class, nor does he even hit the All-Pro level, which is 90 or higher when it comes to the solo tackle market share for All-Pro linebackers. And his age score is not that impressive either. His age was only 6.8 when it comes to his age score, which is not exactly the best either. And athleticism-wise, he only scored 61.43 in terms of explosiveness for his size, 47.58 when it comes to speed for his size, and 41.35 when it comes to flexibility for his size. All those marks, for the most part, don't hit high-quality outcomes when it comes to the linebacker position. I think the best-case scenario for Matt Milano, you're looking at a backup to reserve type of player based on his athleticism and based on his production. But we will see. We'll see what happens with his overall profile. But starter just doesn't seem very logical based on his production, based on his athleticism. Then we come to the next pick of the draft in terms of Nathan Peterman, quarterback out of Pittsburgh. When it comes to his high school production, he scored 69.33, which hits the starter level threshold when it comes to high school level production. Every single long-term starter since the 2007 NFL draft class had at least a high school production score of 69 or higher, and Nathan Peterman hits that level. His only issue, realistically, is just when it comes to college market share production. His complete QB stat score when it comes to collegiate production was only 71.87. And again, these are scores that take into account touchdown interception ratio and completion percentage, and also strength of schedule. So Nate Peterman did not hit the Pro Bowl level when it comes to that metric, and he also did not hit the All-Pro level when it comes to the complete QB stat score. However, I think there is a good shot that Nathan Peterman could become a long-term starter. He's not Kirk Cousins, though. There is similarity to Kirk Cousins when it comes to high school production, but this is Kirk Cousins in terms of his complete QB stat score. Kirk Cousins was a much better quarterback at the college level when it comes to just his ability to affect things compared to his peers, compared to Nate Peterman. But I think at the very least you have a potential long-term starter here with Nathan Peterman, but not necessarily someone that I would ever expect to become a Pro Bowl or All-Pro player based on his high school production and also based on his collegiate production. Then we come to the last pick of the draft in terms of Tanner Vallejo, linebacker from Boise State. When it comes to his production, he scored 44.28 when it comes to solo tackle market share production, and which is not good. Again, it doesn't hit the Pro Bowl level of solo tackle market share production that it needs to hit since the 1996 NFL draft class in 77, nor does it even hit the All-Pro level, which is in the 90s. And when it comes to his athleticism, he only scored 45.21 when it comes to explosiveness for his size, 52 when it comes to speed for his size, and 42.27 when it comes to flexibility for his size, which is not All-Pro or Pro Bowl level athleticism at the linebacker position. Again, these thresholds are created by what the past linebackers accomplished, what the Navarro Bowmans accomplished, what the the Patrick Willises accomplished. What the Jonathan Vilma, just name a Pro Bowl or All-Pro linebacker, and that's what these athletic thresholds are built on. And Tanner Vallejo just doesn't hit any of those high-quality outcomes when it comes to the linebacker position in terms of athleticism, nor does he have the production of the special Pro Bowl or All-Pro players, which is kind of his last saving grace, I guess. Yes, he has at least starter level athleticism, but that's kind of the point I'm trying to get here, is that if he had better production, solo tackle market share production, it would help him out a bit that, oh, he has decent production and he has starter level athleticism. But Vallejo doesn't have those sort of traits. So I think that this is a pick that, again, is probably not going to become a long-term starter, because most of the players that hit that level of production are usually much better athletes overall. Like, here's a couple examples. DeAndre Levy is one of those guys, much better athlete than Vallejo. Thomas Howard's one of those guys, much better athlete than Vallejo. It's just, again, all those players at that level, much more athletic. So I just don't think that Vallejo is going to become a long-term starter based on his production, also based on his athleticism traits. So, a consistent long-term starter, by the way. So how do I feel about the Buffalo Bills draft class? Well, I think everything went extremely well until you got to the Matt Milano pick. I think Tre White, even though he has some upside issues in terms of his athleticism, I still think he's a very good pick in terms of a very productive starter who could become a high quality starter based on his production. Just high quality outcomes are just not necessarily there. Zay Jones is a guy who's very productive and also has very interesting athleticism traits, as is the case with Deon Dawkins as well. But when it comes to the Matt Milano pick, when it comes to the Tanner Vallejo pick, those are linebackers that, based on the data that I have, at the very least could become long-term starters, but more likely will not become high-quality players at all because they don't hit the levels of solo tackle market share that they need to hit, nor do they have the athleticism traits that they have to have in terms of being Pro Bowl / All-Pro potential players. So that's the issue in terms of those players. And then with Nate Peterman, it's really up in the air. He could become a long-term starter, but in the basic look, when you just look at college production, high school production of quarterbacks, even starters typically are hitting into the 80 range of high school production, hitting in the 80 range of college production. So he's a very fringe level starter is what I'm trying to get at when it comes to Nate Peterman. So if he does become a starter, it's very fringe level in terms of what he does. And I don't necessarily think he brings to the table anything better than what you already have with Tyrod Taylor, which is the other sort of thing. And yes, he's a late pick, but I just feel like everybody gives me grief for my criticisms of these picks. But again, you know, the draft is about opportunities to get players to become long-term starters or to become high-quality players. And when you take players that have very low chances of becoming high-quality players or becoming long-term starters or very fringe-level prospects, it just, to me, spells that you're improperly valuing the draft. And I'm fine with you guys getting into the comment section and going, oh, well, you know, you can't do this, and if this really was what it was and GMs would do it, it doesn't matter if NFL GMs do it or not. It doesn't dispute the merits of the data that I present. All the data that I'm presenting is basically the facts, and if you don't like the facts, that's fine, but this is just how this draft turned out. But again, it's not a bad draft. Tre White, Zay Jones, and Deon Dawkins, I think, are going to become very high-quality starters. And maybe one or two of them might end up being Pro Bowl caliber players. It's very possible that Zay Jones and Deon Dawkins could become Pro Bowl quality players. So this is a good draft class. There were some draft classes where they didn't have any Pro Bowl caliber or potential Pro Bowl caliber players. So again, I like the draft class. It's good. It's just that when it comes to the later round picks, those are going to end up being what most of those picks end up being, which is not much of anything. So that's the only thing I would really say about the Bills draft class. Again, my name is James Cobern. You can follow my work at draftcoburn.wordpress.com. You can also follow me on Twitter at Geometrics. And if you like this content and you want more content like this, be sure to like and subscribe. That helps me out a ton. Share this with friends and family, and I will talk to you guys in the next video. Peace.